Live from Cool Boys Central.
You're the boss down there. I'm boss up here.
Hold your dicks and rub your tits.
You'll be ice cold.
Here come the Cool Boys.
Just a young boy.
So cool.
So cool. So cool.
I see Cool Boys.
Greetings, Cool Boy Nation, and welcome to another installment of the Cool Boys podcast. You know what they say? It just works. Oh yeah, we're going to address that.
Oh, really?
I'm Final Cut Felk.
And I'm MacBook Ballard. Felk says,
Yeah, I'm used to someone else saying,
So cool.
98, 99, 100 push-ups. Hey, I tend to do 100 push-ups exactly as a nice, warm-up. Nice. Well, cool boys, I don't think we can get any stronger than that. What?
You just did 100 push-ups, it sounds like.
100 push-ups those are reps. You have to then do, your max.
You know what my favorite thing to do? It's just essentially I count to 3,000. So if someone walks in on me, I'm usually 99, 3,000.
Yeah, like a fucking 70s sitcom dad joke.
Yeah.
That feels like something from not 70s. That feels like something Tim Taylor would do on Home Improvement.
Sure. Probably why I do it. I base most of my fatherly advice from Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Except you're not a coke dealer.
He wasn't on that show.
I know they just retconned that part.
But can you imagine the episode? See, they had an episode that dealt with JTT having cancer. They've dealt with episodes with Mark being a goth.
That was because the actor went goth and refused to take his fucking makeup off.
They've dealt with episodes where I think the wife had breast cancer maybe for a second.
She had thyroid cancer, but then she didn't. She turned out she didn't.
I had a friend's mom who had thyroid cancer. It was great, but I would say that would have been amazing, and it would have been a sure shark jumper if they fucking were the episode where Tim Taylor became a drug-addled coke addict and coke fucking dealer.
I don't know if he was addicted to it. I just know he was a dealer.
No, but I feel like that the show would have to go there with it because you'd have to make it really bad. Like that, especially in the 90s, they always did incredibly bad. Like when people did something, they either did it really, really bad or they barely did it bad at all. And then it was kind of skewed as look how horrible this is.
Yes.
It was just extreme.
They did do an episode with not Jonathan Taylor Thomas, but the other one, Zachary Ty Bryant.
Oh, yes. I have no idea what
he got caught with marijuana.
They did an episode like that?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did a very special episode where he gets caught with marijuana in his pocket. And he's like, I was just holding it for a friend. And a man who had pled guilty to dealing coke had to star an episode about how marijuana is so bad.
You know what's funny is having gone back and rewatched lots of stuff from the 80s and 70s and 90s, how common marijuana was in stuff that I saw as a child, and I had no clue it was in it.
Oh yeah, no, and coke too, PG movies. I had no fucking idea that was coke in Crocodile Dundee.
I'm pretty sure coke is referenced in Look Who's Talking.
I think so. I'm sure it is. I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, Felk, I know next to nothing about what happened today. I just did a really quick read, maybe about 20 minutes ago, on the couch about it was called Everything Apple Announced Today on Gizmodo. I just did that quick read on that article, so you're gonna take me for a ride here. So let me start it off, and then I'll throw it to you, and then you just take this whole episode from there, okay? Okay. All right, Felk. Well, we had a big day today in Apple. Big day indeed. Only happens 4 times a year, right? 3 or 4 times a year they have their events.
Well, WWDC is different than Keynote. Keynote's where they do their more consumer-based products. WWDC happens approximately whenever the fuck they feel like it.
Usually in June and July.
Usually June and July. I mean, it's usually annual, but half the time they don't announce anything. and is more geared towards the pro market, which now has new meaning as of this WWDC. The market now means something completely different, I suppose.
And it's also, for the most part, been a big part of the OS, usually. OS and software-based conversations are had there. So before we get into what was released today, let's get into a brief history of Felk's relationship with Apple.
I wanted to just start off by just kind of establishing some degree of bona fides, because I've been out to shit on Apple for like 20, 30 minutes. So let's have a short episode. Since leaving Apple to some degree by actually having a PC as my main like professional editing rig, which really didn't kick in until about 2016. And when Windows 10 came out and I kind of became a convert, I've endured a lot of shit from people who are Apple people, quote unquote. Like somehow like I'm no longer an Apple person despite numerous Apple products and very strong familiarity. My point is that when I endure taunts like it just works in response to Apple.
Who said that? Who said that taunt, by the way?
I think I should maybe cut that out of the last episode. So maybe I should establish that you said that about Apple, about Macs, referring to your Mac Pro. And then we later established that you still regularly edit plenty of things, including this podcast on Final Cut 7. When did you first buy an Apple product? What was your first product? How old were you? Or received if you didn't buy it, if you got it as a parent.
Yeah, I've always had Apple. I mean, okay, so we had like I think we had like some old fucking compact computer, or that was like maybe the first thing. Or no, Commodore. It was like maybe some Commodore thing. I don't know. It was something like that. And then it was like an IBM for like half a day. And then it was Apple, and that was like really early on. That was 80s. And like I said, my uncle's always, I've said this before in the podcast. One of my uncles has always been a huge proponent of Apple since the get-go. And he now works for Apple. And I've always had Apple products in our house because of it, Apple computers. And my first purchased Apple computer, the like first thing that was bought for me.
What was the first computer that was absolutely like yours?
Okay, so the first thing that was ever bought for me was the first original iMac.
Wow. What did you compute on before that? That would have been well into your high school days.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on like some shitty Mac 2s and Mac 2 SIs or SEs or something like that. I'm not sure which. Bunch of different random Mac stuff. And it mostly like, Mac hard drive, right? Mac computer. And then like some kind of monitor like that was disconnected, but like, it wasn't I honestly don't know what Macs they were.
That's interesting. I can literally name you the model number of every single computer I've ever owned.
See, I don't know all that stuff.
Going back all the way to my birth, basically, was when Apple began for me, 2 years after it. I was 2 years old. I'm establishing this because I've gotten shit from quote unquote Apple people who have been Apple, they've bought Mac Pros or MacBook Pros, and they're all like, PC suck, Macs are better now. And it's like, well, you just bought that in 2008. You merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it, because if you go all the way back to my Baby Boy Ballard days, or I guess I was Baby Boy Felk, but you got mad at me last time I said Baby Boy Felk.
Where?
2 years old. My first
play a whole bunch of baby sound effects right here.
My first two memories are of watching Return of the Jedi. I would have been just under 2 years old. I remember this. And my first interaction with the brand new original 1984 Macintosh that my dad bought. And it was his office computer. And he was what started me on the Macs are better trend. I just grew up in a Mac household because he was a huge proponent of Macs. And it didn't make sense. He wasn't in the creative arts or anything.
What is your dad still use Macs?
No, actually, he's completely switched right
He's
after, 2001. What? No, it's not dead.
You had me for a second.
He's just
there
bought
like, no.
He's just bought PCs ever since like 2000. He just gave up on because of the price, and he tried Windows 7 or XP or whatever.
Oh, the price became an issue in 2000.
Well, because he doesn't do anything advanced enough to need a computer that can do anything more than browse the internet, watch videos, and like email and shit.
So the price is definitely, I would say, something that's very interesting. That was kind of one of the many subjects released today from them.
Yeah. Well, don't skip ahead. We're still in Felk's brief history of Felk's relationship with Apple.
This is very brief.
So that night, that very original Macintosh 128K from 1984, eventually in the.
Let me look at this. Let me look this up. Let me look this up and see what it is actually.
Well, I have Wikipedia links for everything.
I know. I'm pulling them up.
I don't know if you. So that basically when I was about 8 years old.
Oh, the 128K. I played with that bad boy all the time in school.
Well, using Paint in it is like my first memory. And it became my computer only like 4 or 5 years later, when the family computer became a Macintosh Performa. So I was on a black and white, like 9-inch monitor, typing out my schoolwork and shit. Then the Performa became my computer. And more importantly, I got my first real laptop, and in 8th grade began bringing in a PowerBook 5300. Now, I don't know if you remember the PowerBook 5300, but that is the Mission Impossible Macintosh. Also, Independence Day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, PowerBook, basically. That computer was the summer that I got it, was the star, saved the world in Independence Day, and saved Tom Cruise's life in Mission Impossible. And I brought it to school the following year and got mocked mercilessly for this being this weird freak nerd who was bringing a laptop to school to take notes.
Freak.
And this straight up started a fucking war with our computers teacher, who was just some rant, like, because, you know, in the 90s, teachers at private schools are just random ass people they pull out of like a Foot Locker at the mall. You know, they don't know anything. She knew nothing about computers. I knew a lot about computers, but all she knew was that Macs were bad. And she tried to start like a whole like argument, like an adult starting a war with like a fucking 12-year-old or whatever, over the inferiority of Apples. And I was just regurgitating what I knew, but from experience, from playing around, I liked Macs more. They just worked.
They just worked.
And later, a computer I got was the Macintosh clones. I don't know if you remember those. I had a StarTAC made by Motorola, or StarMac made by Motorola, because there was Mac clones in the mid 90s when Steve Jobs wasn't around and the CEO of Pepsi was in charge. And that thing was a piece of shit that never fucking worked. But Steve Jobs came back. He created the iMac. I got the very first iMac. Tried to figure out how to edit on it. Turns out it was useless for that. I got the 1 year later, the new version, the iMac DV with a graphite case.
Yeah,
Beautiful
I got
thing.
the DV.
Firewire.
Yeah. I didn't get that. So that wasn't bought for me. That was that same uncle I was referring to earlier. That was another one of his hand-me-downs, and that was a big deal because I like to make movies, and I had the ability to do some digital video imaging.
Editing.
DVI.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yes. Okay. So it had the Firewire IEEE, whatever number that was.
It was the one before 400, right? And it had a 400, I thought.
It was like 4 numbers. That's where I got into iMovie. Later, you know, Edit DV and in Adobe Premiere, actually, and went off to college and became an editor. And I had other computers through there. I'm not going to go through every computer I've had. But in 2011...
And just so I can say, that's very similar to mine as well, my story.
I'm glad we have symmetry. Because a lot of people, you know, they didn't get into Macs until they entered the industry. I noticed a lot of that. This is the first time they used Macs when bought Macs. This is when they first started working as editors or assistant editors. Before that, they had used Windows. And like even at my film school, all the edit bays were Avid on PCs.
Oh, not mine. No. It was Final Cut at my film school.
Final Cut, we had a Final Cut lab. And Final Cut came out in 2004, I believe.
I learned Avid at a place called the Beep. Just fucking beep it. Beep. And it's a place where a bunch of athletes, like athletes in the Bay Area, would go to like work out, like real fucking athletes, like Jerry Rice type shit. And they had a Avid setup there, and I actually went there to edit on Avid after school with a friend. I had a friend, a really good friend, no longer good friends. Sad, but we were definitely, yeah, but we were great friends then, and we built an enterprise together, making videos essentially for the high school and getting paid around the community, doing videos and just having fun making videos. And I cut all that shit on Avid. And when I went to college, it was like, oh, we're in Final Cut. Okay, I guess I gotta learn Final Cut. And I'm happy they did it, because when I left college to go to the industry, most of television industry that I touched was Final Cut. It wasn't until I guess a little bit later when I touched Avid. Really, I touched mostly Final Cut.
So Final Cut fell out. So let's just jump forward to 2009. I have a relatively new iMac. It's going great. Turns out it was a lemon, and the hard drive dies and burns the screen. I replaced the hard drive myself because I'm not going to pay Apple the $500 or whatever they want to do it for, and
that price has dropped significantly now, just so you know.
I still love this machine because it has the most perfect. I even like edited professionally on it. It has the most perfect editing software ever. Final Cut Pro 7. And I used to work with Cool Boy Ballard, you, and Cool Boy Nolan, who is in the quantum realm, and left there and went to another company where I had previously been working on Final Cut, and this new company used Avid. And for specific tasks, I'm not going to go into too much about what I do.
Final Cut Pro what? Final Cut Pro what?
It was
do you remember?
7. It was 7. In 2009,
7.0.3.
I don't give a shit what point it was at. With that, whatever the last point was.
That was it. I think that's it.
Anyways, I convinced this new production company that I was new to working at to buy Mac Pros just for Final Cut, just for some specific types of editing we had to do. And just 2 years later, in 2011, Apple decided to give a nice fuck you to everyone who relied upon Final Cut 7 professionally.
Oh,
and,
you mean the entire television and film industry? Well,
it depends. Anyone's still going to tape. The weird thing is that when you look back at like what the big fuck you was with FCP X, was that it didn't have any kind of tape support, and it was for a digital workflow
or precision editing.
Well, yeah, I didn't really realize that because I never used it, how shitty it was at precision editing as well, because it is designed based off iMovie.
It started off designed essentially to be like, hey, you can iPad edit on your fucking desktop. And that was the problem, because if you're professionally editing, you don't want to edit like on an iPad. It's not about feeling out the edit. Sometimes it's about precise cuts because you only have X amount of time, or you're working with pre-cut content and the next frame is another shot, and you don't want to have like a flash frame.
You and me can look at like an edited package and just kind of almost see the timeline. You recognize what's B-roll, what's the base layer, and what the B-roll is pulling from. Most people don't think in that terms, and that's where iMovie was designed for. Was for if you just know of video from video itself, you don't have any knowledge of manipulating it. What's the easiest way to convey that? And that's iMovie, and then FCPX was largely based on that. For me, that wasn't even the fuck you though. The fuck you was that what I had sold it on was its excellent tape support, because we were dealing with elements coming from and back to tape. Yeah. So yeah, the thing that I convinced them was excellent for what we needed was no longer supported. No, I've heard that X now has tape support back into it.
Of course, X has everything back into it.
But okay, so I mean, but it's still designed off a way of looking at an NLE timeline that isn't the same as basically every other standard.
Here's the problem though. I don't know anyone that's using Final Cut X on a professional live event level. And I'll say this, when I was working for a major live event, for years, and I would say we had a weekend where Adobe came in and tried their best to get us off of Avid, and they tried to prove that they could also handle back and forth communications with a production truck, back and forth communications with a satellite truck, like back and forth, literally back and forth, feeding stuff to a satellite and getting live interview feeds back from a satellite, feeding content to a truck, features, pre-cut packages, all that type of stuff, graphic packages.
Again? What year?
What year is this?
Yeah.
That Adobe specifically came and bugged us.
Yeah.
I think it was like 2014.
Okay.
And
that's fine. By then they had the clout for this. They had tried that shit in 2009.
They tried and it failed.
Yeah.
It failed. The whole weekend failed. We were lucky we got it through. We had a support that came, an actual support tech guy that was there with us. And he spent the whole week contacting engineers and having them rewrite code and sending us patches and having us to put patches in, because we were essentially their guinea pig. Adobe didn't know really what to do with this. It failed miserably. And the following weekend, the following show, we went right back to Avid.
Well, see, that's the thing. If we're talking about like cars, Avid is the fucking tank.
It's robust. It's well made.
Well, it's also ridiculously stable and unintuitive enough that they can make a racket by selling their own classes. Final Cut was always easy enough to learn on your own, pretty much. My FCP knowledge was always self-taught, and same with when I eventually switched to Premiere.
Oh my God!
Well, let's.
You know what happened to that Adobe guy?
We gotta stick on.
That Adobe guy, he eventually that weekend, he just disappeared. He never came back. He never said goodbye. He just disappeared at one point because it got so stressful that he thought, well, just better to walk away from all of this than be here and have any more issues.
Back into the Creative Cloud.
He did. He soaked right up into it.
All right. So right after that, in 2012, my trusty iMac, only like 3.5-4 years old, its power supply dies, and I vow not to buy a desktop PC again. I have a MacBook, but I'm not going to buy. I just look into like what actual specs this thing has. The iMac that at that point was spec.
You didn't look into the MacBook, you didn't look into the Mac Pro at all at this point. There's no you never once looked into the trash can. The
trash can did not exist. It wasn't out until 2013.
That was 2013 when they decided to fuck us over with the trash can.
Yeah, the trash can's the next fuck over.
By the way, I love.
As you can see, I'm on Feltco's PC, and then the next thing is the trash can and everything wrong with it.
Oh, great! Let's get to it.
Well, no. So I just say fuck it. I spend like $800 on a PC. Don't know what to use to edit on it. I managed to get Avid working on it and use that for a while. Hate having Avid as my home editor. Buy a better laptop and just acknowledge that, like, all right, a lot of people who are Mac people who gave me shit for using a PC for my main editing rig, their only Mac was a MacBook Pro. So
who are these people? Are these like random people on the internet?
Coworkers.
Okay.
Anyways, I buy a Mac Pro. This is shortly after the trash can. But I take that little PC and upgrade it once to play Titanfall, my first upgrade with the graphics card, and that just started an avalanche. And now I'm upgrading the case and then the motherboard, and then oh shit, Oculus is the VR is out, so I upgrade for VR and I experience VR. By the way, how's VR on a Mac?
I don't have VR.
There is no VR on Mac still, as far as I know.
Ayo.
You have to run Windows on a boot camp to run it, and just experience the world of PCs. And little by little I accept Premiere as a viable way to edit across platform agnostic. Windows 10 comes out, and I finally have an OS that I actually don't dislike or think is worse than the Mac OS. It's just almost a wash between the two of them at this point. Mac, the current whatever mountain we're currently on versus whatever weird code Windows 10 is on, 1903 for the Windows version.
Woo!
High Sierra, something like that, right?
For what? For Mac?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not
They
running
named
it
them
yet.
after cats and then mountains.
California. It's named after places in California.
Yeah.
And the newest one is the Catalina wine mixer.
Is that an island on Catalina? Because Catalina is not an island, or not a mountain. Wait, is that a mountain? Is there a mountain on Catalina Island called Catalina?
I don't think so. I think it's just Catalina. I mean, Mojave is not a fucking mountain either. Mojave Desert.
So it's just places.
It's just places. That's what I said. I didn't say mountains. Mavericks isn't a mountain. Mavericks is a place.
Mavericks was a mountain range. I don't know what the things.
No, Mavericks is a giant. Is like 10 miles off the coast of near Half Moon Bay in Santa Cruz, and you can like just go out there, a few miles, and it's a giant area of waves. And I think between like around October, November, I think, or something like that.
This is like Texas doesn't do this shit. We just have flat land.
That's not true. I've been in Texas.
There's not areas. There's no Mojave equivalent in Texas.
There's definitely deserty areas in Texas and also very hilly areas in Texas.
And what are their names?
I don't know.
We don't name them. We don't do that shit.
Oh, you lived in Texas. I lived in California my whole life.
No,
so I know
I
some
live in
areas.
Texas, and I'm saying we don't. California names every fucking
You ever been to
stupid
Horseshoe
region.
Bay?
Every
You ever been to
region.
Horseshoe
This
Bay?
is the Mojave. This is the High Sierra Range. They name everything in California because they're arrogant. In Texas,
Have you ever been
it's
to
all
Horseshoe
just-
Bay?
It's all just God's land.
Have you been to Horseshoe Bay?
No, I've not been to goddamn Horseshoe Bay. Where's Horseshoe
Have you
Bay?
been to the RGV?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
No, RGV, Rio Grande Valley.
No, nor have I been on the Trayvon V, which stands for really big fast.
Okay, well, I've been to those places in Texas. I'm surprised you haven't been there, and I know of them.
All right, whatever. I don't care anymore. All right, let's move on to wherever we are currently. Oh, the trash can. Yeah, the trash can's not a fucking. So the trash can is cute.
I own
and it's
two of them.
small. What?
I own two of them.
You've owned two of them?
Yes, but I don't like them. I mean, okay, once again, I love Apple. I will always buy Apple. I am the thing Felk essentially making fun of and hating this entire episode, except I don't bash you if you don't like Apple. I have lots of friends who have PCs. I love PCs too. I just don't own any PCs.
I'm not trying to bash you. I'm mad at Apple.
No, I get it. No. But I'm just saying, like, I am an unabashedly, huge Apple fan, and I've been bred that way. I've been essentially brainwashed that way. I'm okay with it. And that's my world. So I don't like the garbage can. The trash can, I think, is a step back. I think the design they had for the Mac Pro prior to it was amazing, and
It was perfect.
customizable.
It was the
made
perfect
sense.
PC case. It was basically the like height of a PC case. It wasn't the Mac Pro originally. It was the Power Mac G5, I think, was the actual introduction of the case. It's the exact same.
No, I think it went further back. I think it was like a G4 even had something like that.
Yeah, it was a G. It wasn't a G3 though, because I had the G3 tower, which was made of plastic. And I never had. That was my last
like the
Power
iMac.
Mac. What?
It looked like the iMac just as a tower.
Well, I was
I had
all
a friend that had
iMac
that.
for 3 iMacs, but eventually I realized that, like, having the screen be connected to the computer is stupid. Why not have them be separate?
Well,
Makes
see,
more
as a kid in high school, going to college and then going to college and moving a lot when I was in college, like every year was a different place. I appreciated actually having iMacs for that reason alone.
Maybe if they were more durable, but mine were pretty fucking fragile. They all got damaged in moving.
Oh, dude, I beat the shit out of my old school iMacs.
Yeah, throwing
The
cum at
old
it.
ones. Yeah, I beat. They were definitely not well taken care of. When they finally went aluminum,
Yeah,
I started finally taking care of my iMac big time.
yeah. I don't really actually hate the trash can Mac Pro as much as I think it sounds like you do, even though you bought two of them. I just kind of thought it was.
What made it sound like I hate it?
What?
Made it sound like I hate it so much.
You said I've had two of them, but I don't like them.
I don't. Okay, what I don't like about it, I didn't say hate, but I don't like.
For some
Maybe
people,
I did.
I don't like
Play the
hate. They're colloquial. For you, they have very distinct meanings. Like it, love it, gotta have it. These things, or gotta own it, which is your own creation. These things have
Gotta own
distinct, important meanings.
Okay, so I like that they're well-made machines in the sense that they can do the things that you need them to do. My only main issue with the trash can was that it really hindered customization, and that's one of the things I really liked about the Mac Pro series was that you could get a tower and you could get I don't know how many drives you want attached to it, how many fucking CD-ROMs you want to put into it, like how much RAM do you want to shove into there?
6 CD-ROM drives.
Like you could do that kind of stuff.
If
and
you
like
wanted to have 6 CD-ROM drives, you could.
But once you added, a garbage can into the situation that had no drives space, like additional drive space, you couldn't keep popping in multiple drives in there. You couldn't upgrade drives to the point. I mean, like what was it, like 8 different drives you could put into a Pro, if I'm not mistaken? It was more like how many drives slots was it? Was it 8?
There was definitely 6. There's definitely 6.
Maybe it was 6. But like okay, and then on top of that, you could add
3 trays.
No, drives, not ROMs, not ROMs. I'm talking about drives. Like it was 8 different
drive trays.
Yeah, drive trays. Okay, yeah. But then the actual ROMs you could add in there. You couldn't do any of that with the garbage can.
No, you couldn't. They wanted you to go external.
So now you were all of a sudden external with all of these like cables, and like that's just shit and ugly when you could have it all tied up into a nice thing. So just all the customization went to hell, and that really upset me. I really did not like that.
Well, here's the interesting thing, though. If you do a breakdown of the trash can's actual like components, at least going with its base model, when it retailed for $3,000 to replicate what it had inside it, actually came up to like $2,600 to $2,800. It wasn't ridiculously inflated. Now it was, of course, when it came out, but not. It was about a 33% markup. We're going to get into the Apple tax. Actually, let's just move on to what happened yesterday. The WWDC Developers Conference, Worldwide Developers Conference. I'm pretty sure that means.
Yesterday? Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Monday?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was today.
No, it was yesterday.
Well, just pretend it was today because I said today earlier.
Today, Monday.
Yeah. Even though this comes out a week later, whatever. Who gives a shit?
I sure hope nothing horrible happens Tuesday.
God.
9/11 2 happens on Tuesday, and we don't know at this point because it's Monday. I'm leaving all this in.
Oh, could you imagine? Could you imagine?
It was yesterday. I'm not gonna fucking go around some convoluted time travel scheme.
You know
so
what?
You can admit to that you didn't notice the news was yesterday.
Just cut that, make that all the Easter egg, and then just clean up that edit right there instead. So then that way people have it later.
I'll do something.
Okay, cool.
I'll do something.
So, yeah, what happened?
What happened was the conference. They announced they announced a bunch of software updates. And honestly, I don't really give a shit about iOS 13. It is a dick move that it does not work on the iPhone 6 because the iPhone 6 is the most popular phone in, I think, America. It's lots of people still have 6s. I do. You're still running a 6?
I'm not running my 6, but I have it.
I have it too as a nightstand thing. So I can be sure to get all fucking the cool boy text messages at 7 a.m. while I'm not awake. About Nolan's
Daddy
thoughts
time
on fucking boats show on gay boat show. Oh, did you see the episode? What?
Can you get an animal in your apartment?
Yeah.
You should have an animal. Then you'll be up at 7 a.m. and you can jump in right in those texts and everything.
First off, the only animal I've come close to adopting was a pug. And that fucker was not getting up at 7 a.m.
Good boy.
Yeah, basically my family members were like, don't get a dog. You really might not like it in such a small space, but also it's like a 15-year commitment. They always said that. I was like, 15-year commitment, 13-year commitment. Dogs live for a long time. And I'm like, I'm going to prove to you that there's hacks for everything. Life hacks for everything. And the life
You're going to kill your dog?
No, you adopt an 11-year-old dog. I was adopted an 11-year-old pug that was at an animal shelter.
I thought you were concocting some scheme where
I'm not gonna murder my fucking dog, Ballard.
You were going to take your dog to the wild. It's going to get rabies and you're going to have to old yeller it.
No, I'm not going to murder a goddamn dog. I'm going to adopt a dog that's old and needs a new home because probably his owner was an old person who died.
I love telling my kids the old yeller story.
Why? That's horrible. Oh, you're frozen. Okay, you're good.
It's a great story.
All right. So what did they? So other than that, they announced some basic updates. iOS.
They
is now-
announced iPad OS update, a Watch OS update,
Yeah,
a
the
TV
Watch is-
OS update,
the Apple
a
Watch.
HomeKit OS update,
All right. The Apple Watch.
a
Can now,
sign in with Apple update.
what can the Apple Watch do now? It can track your
Nothing.
periods.
Woo! Is that
Hey,
all it is? Is
that's
that
a-
it? Is that really it?
That's like the biggest news. Hey, whatever. That sounds like something that there's got to be people who want to be able to track their periods. I would
Wait,
think,
I thought it can stream audio now directly out of your watch for like listening to like Spotify or your iTunes or whatever.
no one gives a shit about software updates. The big news that everyone's complaining about, and the thing that as professionals who have bought Mac Pros, really it's a weird thing, is that they announced a bunch of way overpriced Pro hardware. They have a $5,000 monitor.
$499 or $4,999.
$4,999 or $6,000 or $509,099 for the slightly better version that has a glossy screen. The screen being, I think, glossy versus matte costs an extra $1,000. Now, there are $5,000 studio monitors designed for, namely, color correction, and this monitor might be probably is good enough to be used for that. But you want a separate monitor over your actual main computer monitors. You want a studio monitor for that kind of work. So I don't really understand who this is for, especially considering the kind of pro work that it's designed for. You would need two of them. And at that point, if you look into professional high-end in terms of color and nets, which is how you measure brightness, you can get the top of the line is like $1,200. That's from like Samsung, like reputable brands. Where and really, you know, bang for your buck, $600 is the top price range for good monitors. Maybe when I see it in person, I'll be like, okay, this is worth $5,000 to $6,000, and I'll be fine. But that doesn't get to the point where that's not the point that people are really fucking upset about. What they're upset about is that the $5,000 to $6,000 monitor does not come with an included stand.
Yeah, because I think they're assuming people are much more comfortable nowadays mounting their screens, but not for a computer monitor.
Okay.
That seems a little much, doesn't
You
it?
include the stand and have it be detachable, and people like every
Exactly.
other fucking monitor that's ever been sold.
Every TV out there has a stand that comes with it, and you can detach it and put it on the wall. Yes, it's crazy.
So the stand costs $1,000.
Yeah,
and it, more importantly, it is a proprietary stand using proprietary docking technology, so that if you don't want to use that specific stand to attach this to any aftermarket or currently existing computer stand monitor stands, you need a $200 adapter. Now, I don't know whether or not the gray market will figure out an adapter that they can then sell for $20, but like, why they would even, you know,
what? I did not know any of this. That's
Hold on.
crazy.
See if I can find the adapter.
That's crazy. Really?
Yeah. So the Vesa is the name of the adapter, and that costs $200, and that hooks into the back of the monitor if you want to use any other stand other than the Pro stand, which costs $999. And it has some like weird tech where you can rotate it and tilt it in all kinds of weird ways, but there is no sane world in which a sit stand is worth $1,000. And the argument may be that really, to make a profit, these monitors, because of the super high-end tech they use, should cost $6,000 and $7,000, but they offset the price for marketing purposes and like hope to like sneak in. Yeah, but you gotta spend at least $200, Steve, and mount it on anything. And we really want you to spend $1,000 extra for this fucking stand that will impress everybody when you bring them into your fucking edit bay office and ask them to blow you.
What happens in your edit bay office? Jesus.
Hypothetically. So yeah, this gets into what I was talking about earlier, which is the Apple tax, which is that when I got into building PCs, you learn that like, okay, what costs $2,500 in a MacBook Pro can be got in terms of specs on a Windows 10, from a reputable brand like HP or Dell.
Made with less quality in the materials, though.
For the most part, Razer comes close, but then they also come close to the price. Usually, you're talking about, for a $2,500 product, you're talking about $300 Apple tax. I've never, in the history of looking at Apple specs, which I've done, my whole life, all the way to the Trash Can Mac Pro, I've never seen the Apple tax be more than like 33%. And that's just because you want to use Mac OS and you want to use iMessage, which is the thing that keeps me in the Mac ecosystem. But it's never been like baffling to me until yesterday with a $1,000 Pro stand and the $6,000 base new Mac Pro, which, by the way, looks like a smaller version of the Mac Pro that we all loved, still made of aluminum, only now its front looks like a cheese grater, and it's got weird handles at the top.
Whoa. Okay, my older brother sent me a photo of his cheese grater literally right next to his, MacBook Pro, and he's all like, hey, check out my new Mac Pro. And,
okay.
But wait, the Mac Pro, prior to the trash can, had the exact same look practically.
Its grate wasn't as
pronounced
cheese gratery. Yeah,
it's not more, the grate, it's the handles look more like a cheese grater handle.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the handles are what make it look like a cheese grater. I don't really give a shit. I don't think it's ugly at all. I kind of think the trash can's actually prettier visually. And if
I think the trash can looks like garbage, and I'm kind of happy they went back to the square.
Yeah, the fact that it costs $6,000, whereas 2 weeks ago, the Mac Pro cost $3,000. It was $3,000 at the start. It was $3,000 in the 6 years that they didn't update it. To double the price, okay, you're doubling the tech. You're doubling the specs. This thing is fucking insanely better, right?
Mm.
Have you looked at the specs? Wait.
Let's look it up.
Well, under what's inside, you just click on those two links. Now, if you're building a computer, the two most expensive things are going to be the processor and the graphics card, followed by the motherboard, and then other things, RAM and so forth. And this has been done by Gizmodo, but I also double checked it myself. They didn't list all the specs, so I looked at some of them. You got the Intel Xenon processor. Let's click on those links real fast,
yep,
so I can remember. And you got a Radeon 580X. The processor is a Xenon W3225 processor, running base 3.7 gigs, 8 cores, 16 threads. I just bought a i9 processor for less than $500 with 16 cores and 32 threads at 5 gigahertz. Yet this processor, reasonably so, costs $1,200. What's the difference between a Xenon processor and a Core processor? Macs use Xenons and Cores too. Why do Xenons cost more?
Because they use Xenon technology.
Because they
from Xenu.
Because they are designed as server CPUs, meaning that they can easily take computations across multiple CPUs, meaning if you network them, they're render farms, basically.
Of course, any fool would not know, or any schoolboy would know that.
Render farms are primarily used for 3D
of course,
image creation. So there is a market for the Xenon processor and why it would cost more. The problem is that Mac Pros have always used Xenons, and it always increases the price a little bit because most people use Mac Pros. They're working off internal RAIDs usually at home, editing for their YouTubes and shit. That's the biggest editing market right now. Apple's not designing this for them. Apple says the Mac Pro or even just a regular iMac is for somebody who wants to edit YouTube videos. This is designed for Pixar and the 50 different visual effects studios that you see at the end of every Marvel movie and every
the prosumer.
No, those are pros. This is not for prosumers. The previous Mac Pro was for prosumers to a certain degree. Really, the iMac was. But this is for absolute pros.
Professionals.
So one way or another, if you're just looking to work on your own shit and you're not going to be networking with a bunch of other computers to share rendering and share computational processes, you can get away with a Core processor for half the price of what a Xenon is. But still, this is a great processor. $1,200. You can buy it direct from Intel. You can build it in any kind of machine. It costs $1,200. The next most expensive thing is the fucking graphics card. It's got an AMD Radeon RX 580, excellent card, better than I think the the Infinity. Well, it's comparable to probably what I have, is just 1070. It's $289.
Wow.
This is the base one. Now, if you configure this thing all the way up to the absolute max, you end up getting two Radeons that are even more expensive one. Those cost quite a bit more. But in a max configuration, Mac Pro, the current Mac Pro, which starts at $6,000, what's this max configuration then at?
Whoa.
$32,000.
Oh.
So basically, if you build, we cover the CPU, we cover the graphics card. The motherboard is custom, so it's a little hard to price because it comes with like a bunch of Thunderbolt ports, and most motherboards don't come with Thunderbolt ports. You buy a card to add Thunderbolt cards, but guess how much those cards cost? About $80. Gizmodo did this.
Too much.
I hate, even though I hate Gizmodo for lots of reasons, they can do basic math for the most part. Basically, the specs inside this thing come out to $2,500. For the $6,000 base Mac Pro. And I've checked this myself. This is,
what is it?
What
is it then?
Are you even following me?
Yeah, but what is it then? So what's the difference? The
difference is that I think Apple's gone fucking insane finally.
Here's some stuff I've heard. There's so much oversight now, because they do a lot of work in like China, things like that. This is some speculation and some understanding of the way things work. That like, I mean, I can't explain why like it's so high this time, Felk. I can explain why in general it is high. And Apple got, fucked over and had the whole world eyes on them. And they were like, the whole world was like, why are your workers committing suicide? So they spend a lot of time now and have to pay.
Oh, you mean Foxconn?
Yeah, but they were at one point, and so now
Foxconn
Apple had to spend a lot of money, though.
Yeah.
Apple had to spend a lot of its money and have to factor it into the products, and the cost of a product to actually get oversight. And the people that run companies that handle oversight for like this type of scenario, these types of situations, these type of corporations, this type of industry are, few and far between and expensive as fuck.
I just don't understand why
it also requires a lot of infrastructure to run oversight like that. So then you're establishing a whole nother set of departments, other jobs, and these are people that have to be factored into what is, the overhead on the cost of making a product. So I'm not saying that adds up to why the difference between what you just described was essentially $2,500 for a $6,000 computer.
Yeah.
You're saying literally there's a difference of $3,500.
Well,
I'm thinking that in the past, some of that would be oversight would be factored into that. You are right, though. That is incredibly expensive. And I think some of that is the additional $1,000 for a fucking monitor stand.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the $1,000 monitor stand, I'd almost be like going, no, they have tech in there, like the cooling, the form factor, the money adds up. The Apple tax is what it's always been. Because like even today, if it's shit with Foxconn and oversight from China and all that stuff, that does explain
allegedly speculation, whatever.
That explains a percentage of what the Apple tax has always been. But like there's still Apple products right now. The top of the line iPhone for like $1,200 is comparable to the top of the line Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, which costs $950. Like it's just a percentage. It's never been above 33%.
I would say that the more recent things
now we're over 100%
are higher.
What?
Like they're more expensive. Like it's been a pattern recently. I mean, I would say the last batch of iPhones and whatnot came out. There was like stuff in there. People were like, whoa, why is this fucking iPhone so expensive? This is out of control expensive for an iPhone.
You're seeing an upward tick. This is just a a more aggressive curve too.
I think so, but
because percentage-wise, nothing's ever been this overpriced. Nothing's ever been a $1,000 piece of metal that holds up something.
Well, yeah. I don't. It doesn't. I don't understand it either. It really doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm looking at a GIF of it right now that Apple provided of how it moves, and it's like, and it's just like, what? Like this is $1,000. Like I don't need it to slightly go up 2.5 inches and then go down 2.5 inches and tilt and then up or down. Like it doesn't. Does it? By the way, does it tilt left or right? It doesn't look like it does. I don't know if it did in the actual presentation. I didn't see the presentation.
I just don't know who would buy this. At this price, I don't know who would buy it.
People with way too much money in their hands and in large budgets that they have to have completed by the end of the fiscal, because this doesn't make any fucking sense. This is overkill. This is massive overkill. And like I said, I'm a huge Apple fan. I get almost anything Apple. And like I said, it was weird that the iPhone got really weirdly expensive this year. I know they have different variances and prices in phones this year, but that's also what kind of got weird. It became I used to like it when iPhone was released. It was boom, here it is. This is it. And then it became all of a sudden like, here it is, and here's a bigger one. And now it's like, hey, look, we are releasing 5 iPhones or whatever the fucking number was.
But no, yeah, I have stood in line for many iPhones, and the iPhone's still a fucking fantastic product. The MacBook Pro is still a fantastic product. The iMacs are still a fantastic product. I don't really like the concept of a iMac Pro. A $5,000 all-in-one seems really weird to me, just from a level of understanding. I mean, I guess they just assume that you're going to buy Apple Care for 5+ years or 10 years or whatever, and be able to replace anything if it goes wrong, because I mean, the way it's built, it's a single point of failure. If you're if for example, you have an iMac and its FireWire stops working, there's no way you're going to fix that on your own. You got to take it back to Apple and pay whatever they want for it. Whereas, if you have a built computer, you just swap out one card or swap out the monitor if the monitor dies, whatever. I think it's like 90% of video content right now is from content creators over professional legacy editors, who work in more common studios producing television and stuff. Because every second, 1,000 hours are uploaded to YouTube, so they want those people. Apple wants those people. If you're going to edit or create video content or do any kind of high-end productivity that requires an actual CPU and GPU, they want you on their newly refreshed Mac Minis, their MacBook Pros, and their iMacs. And I'm assuming that the only people they're expecting to buy these new Mac Pros, at least for a few years until the price comes down or something, is high-end studios that also really, really care about staying within the Mac ecosystem and have a lot of cheese.
A lot of cheese, the cheddar.
To grate on the front of it.
Apple, they're no dummy. Okay.
Yeah.
I think they realized the mistake. I thought they really realized the mistake with the iPhone this year of having an exuberant, fucking ridiculously pricey iPhone that just nobody wanted. But
not really, because they made the XR to compete with, because they realized they were losing market share to Samsung.
But yeah, I get it, and that's why I was just like, why are you releasing so many? Just release one iPhone. Just release one fucking iPhone. That's generation. Like, make me want that one thing. I literally did not give a shit about anything they released.
I'm fine with there being a high-end iPhone, and I'm glad that for the first time I got to like really feel like I was deciding which iPhone I was going to buy.
I was fine with it enough until the point when I saw a $6,000 Mac Pro was like brought up for $1,000 on a stand, and it makes me start to think that they're getting a little bit too fucking greedy, and that concerns me. That does concern me, honestly, and I'm curious where we go from here. Well, because I thought they would have not have gone the further down the pit of greed with this $1,000 fucking type of stand situation, but literally that's what you're telling me. It's what I'm finding out here, and that's crazy to me.
Do you see Steve Jobs introducing $1,000 stand?
No, never.
I
don't think he would ever do that. And here's what I think. I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna have a Sonic the Hedgehog moment. I think Apple's gonna realize,
the movie.
Oh yeah, this didn't go over so well. People think this is stupid. We're probably not going to sell a lot of these. People are probably going to buy a lot of the monitors and just like attach them to walls and shit like that, and not like buy the stand or some kind of like.
Well,
maybe some kind of protest.
a lot of people are
kind
assuming
like,
that there'll be a like third party people will figure out how to attach.
I'm sure
to
that'll
it.
happen at some point, but it has to go live on the market first for them to be able to do their R&D.
Yeah.
And that being said, I think there might be some kind of sonic moment where Apple's kind of like, we don't want there to be a flooding of the market for all these other people's third-party versions of this. That's the reason we want them to use this, is we try to like, strong arm everyone into having to use this $1,000 stand. So I don't know. I hope there's a sonic moment where they go back and they restructure the concept and they're like, let's do this. How about the stand is part of the cost of the monitor? At this, and the monitor's new cost is this before they release it. Has it been released yet? When's the official release date?
No, there isn't one. I don't think
It's probably November, October.
it's usually like just a few months later.
So that's my hope. I know that they've had to in the past admit shit. Like I think it was the iPad 2. They had to admit that there were yellow splotches on the screen from the glue because the glue was drying too fast in the market.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember Antenna Gates.
Like if you looked at your iPad 2, you would have these weird yellow halos on the edge. And I went through like 20 of them before I finally got my iPad 2 that had no haloing on the edge. This weird yellow little blur.
I want to mention during Bendgate. You remember that, where the iPhone, I think it was 6. Was bending, and I remember being in an Apple store and watching a kid just take the fucking thing and just bend it on the table and get in trouble. Like, oh, could you please not do that, sir? I was like, he was destroying property, and they're like, oh, please don't bend our phones, please.
Just don't show them everyone around you right now that you were able to do that. We're trying to prove that people can't do that in their pockets. Yeah. There was another one I think that happened. I thought there was another one with the mini, like the iPad mini, like something occurred with the screen. I can't remember. Anyways, Apple's been good in the past when they make a mistake. They're like a really dumb mistake like this. They kind of are like, oops.
They're
so
not going to drop thousands of dollars off products they just announced.
I know, it's so weird. It's so weird. I feel like they should just be like, oops, silly prank.
Yeah.
It's so weird. $1,000 for a stand is so weird.
2 years ago, $1,000 stand would have been a fucking Onion joke about Apple.
Yes, it would have been.
And
dude, I bet you the Onion was writing a joke really similar to that in preparation for today. Then this went down and they were like, oh, fuck, it's too close. Yeah. We actually have to change it. Go with the B story. Well, Felk, that was a wonderful Apple talk. But Cool Boy Nation, we have a huge amount of mail to read. And we're not going to get to it this week. We really have a lot of mail. Thank you, everyone who's contributed. We will get to it next week because next week's episode is all about opening our mailbag.
So we do have some communiques coming in from Nolan. I'm not going to read his email. Next week is mailbag stuff. But he does mention that our topic tonight reminded him of our old friend, name redacted. Let's call him JP. And we've discussed JP. JP? It's PJ.
Yeah, it's PJ. For sure it's PJ.
Oh, okay. Well, Nolan's not getting his email read because he screwed up PJ's name.
Really?
Yeah. But he did mention him. And I want to note that when we discussed the thing with when Final Cut X was announced and fucked over everyone who was relying on Final Cut 7 for its functionality for work, minutes after that, I got a text message and email from our old friend PJ, who again I just was a couple of years off having worked with, asking me to sign his petition to Apple to basically undo what they just announced and either bring the Final Cut 7 functionality into the new Final Cut X or simply create a Final Cut 8 that maintain the functionality of Final Cut 7 to sell along X, or maybe just continue to say you'll fully support 7 for years to come and have its own product line. And of course, I didn't sign this position because I knew that was stupid, and none of that happened.
What? Really?
Well, no, Apple didn't do any of that. They just fucking People are still clinging to Final Cut 7, but it hasn't been updated since 2009. It isn't compatible with like the last 3 OSs. How do you even run it anymore? Do you use that patch?
No, I haven't updated my OS.
For Final Cut 7.
Mm-hmm.
It just works.
It just works, baby.
That was the fucking best Apple convo we have ever done, probably.
Woo!
Cool Boy Nation, I got a dick so big. Tell us about any of your funny or interesting Apple stories. Also, if you're PJ, you probably wouldn't realize that we're talking about you, but if you are, come on the show sometime or something like that. Also, if you have any questions or any more insight into Apple, then let us know by emailing us at thecoolboyspodcast.
Please, any rumors. Give us the rumors. Give us those rumors.
Couldn't let me have a clean read.
Who cares? Who cares where to send it? Give us the rumors.
I'm not going to do an L cut there to correct that. I'm going to let you talk over. Email us at the Cool Boys Podcast at who? Could it be Hotmail? Could it be Yahoo? You don't know.
I hope it's Hotmail.
Remember Hotmail? I always thought less of people when they used Hotmail. Like, why? Of all the mails, like, why that one?
I think I had Hotmail account first, and then I went quickly to Yahoo and then Gmail.
Hot, sexy mail. Okay. New episodes of the Cool Boys Podcast come out whenever the fuck we feel like it. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Cool Boys and review us on iTunes. You can also donate to us on Patreon at patreon.com/coolboyspodcast. Please check out our other great Cool Boy Central content with Batman and Beyond on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. It's everywhere. You can get it all over the place. Thank you for listening. Stay cool, Cool Boy Nation. Until next time, it's Byzies from Final Cut Felk.
That's Byzies from MacBook Ballard.
Do outstanding American boy.
You have excelled in all things.
I pump while I dump.
Oh, yeah. So cool.
Oh, yeah. So cool.
Oh, yeah.
So cool.
Get out of here, damn silly. Get out of here!
Oh, yeah.
This episode of the Cool Boys Podcast was brought to you by...
All right, well, I have an update for you. So I just got today, because I'm going to be shirtless at a pool soon. I got a spray tan. I've done them before, but...
Look how good you look. Look at this. Your abs look so good.
But the problem was, is as soon as I got home, I found that there was a incredible new porn with Siren Demir solving piss with D. Williams and Barbie Sens. And I had to throw a beat to that. And I came on my belly, and if you can see here, there's unfortunately, that wiped away some of the spray tan, so I'm gonna have to even that out.
Yeah. Wait, that looks like a huge load.
Hey, what can I say? I've been told many times I have an abnormally large load.
All right, so like I would shoot out say anywhere between 3/4, 75 cents to $1.50. Like what about you? $1.50 is a good day.
I don't understand how cents are a measurement of cum volume.
Well, think of each little puddle is like
$1.50 in cum. What the fuck does that mean?
That's like 4 quarters. It's like
Are you talking about the diameter of the quarter?
Yeah, it's like
that's still
quarters.
A pretty.
It's like 4 quarters and a couple dimes.
Are you completely
5 times.
foreign to the concept of how you measure liquid?
Well, and when it's splattered out all over things,
A shot glass. Can you fill a shot glass?
I've never tried to ever.
You never come in a shot glass
any container
and then hand it to a girl and have her do the shot?
No, I have never filled a container with cum.
Get some
Cool boys.
So serious.